Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, welcome back. Steve Murray here with My Obsessions. Today's video, bringing you that 13-pointer I ended up connecting with back October 30th. He ended up going 169.5 inches. It was my biggest deer so far. This was a whirlwind of events that went on that day. I was trying to go and get a ladder stand set up. I just got permission to hunt that spot last year. I lost my main spot that I hunted. It got sold, and there was me and another guy that hunted in there, and we've hunted it for over 20 years. Well, he was nice enough to let me hunt on another piece of property that he had permission to hunt. That hunted it once last year. Asked him if he'd be all right if I set up a stand on the north side tree line. He was fine with it. I kept procrastinating, putting stuff off like I always do, and wait until the last minute to do it, and then I forgot about it. Well, he calls me up second week of October, asked, hey, did you ever put that stand up on that north side, or that north tree line? I was like, no, I never did. I said, I planned on it, and then I just forgot. I wanted to get in there before they put crops in and put it up in the spring. That way I didn't have to worry about crops, and I could drive a golf cart all the way up there and drop it off and set it up and be done. Easy. No. So I wait, and then he calls. He's wanting to go and hunt it too. I was like, well, I'll get it. Next chance I get, I'll go over there and hunt, and I'll just pack it over there and set it up. And that's what I ended up doing. Their beans were still in, so I couldn't drive over to it. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't get it drug over there, nothing. So I got into a spreader track. When they come in and spread fertilizer, they knock down a bunch of the beans, just tire track. So I grabbed that ladder stand up, and I have it up on my shoulders, have my head through one of the rungs and kind of balance it out the best I could, and I pack it all the way across this field. I ended up having to pack this stand probably an eighth of a mile or a little more to get back to where I was going. Hope you guys enjoy the video. If you don't care, hit the like, subscribe, and we're going to jump on into this video real quick. Hope you guys like it.
Come on, go down. Go down. Come on, baby, go down. Go down. Go down. Oh my gosh, I think I just shot the biggest deer of my life. The day before Halloween. It's at 20 yards. I didn't get a complete pass through, but it looks like I smoked him. It looked like I hit him perfect. He was behind me. I couldn't get my camera on him. Plus, the battery on my camera was just going dead. And I was trying to get to another battery. I've had a little 8-pointer in here chasing all night. I did get it on the Tacticam. But we'll see. I tried to get it. He ran straight on up. And you can, I don't know if you can see, but my knock is out there flashing. But he was a little over 20 yards away. You know, he was about right there. He was staggering up, going up towards that little buck. Oh my gosh, that all come together out of nowhere. He come from behind me. These other deer come from this way and come from out of these woods. And then that big one come from behind me. And it looked good. I mean, it looked really good. And he ran on out. Where that arrow fell out. But then he went on out a little bit farther. And he stopped in the middle of the beans. And he stood there for a minute. And his tail started flickering. And he was flickering his tail hard. And then it looked like he was getting ready to start staggering. And then he took off running. And ran right back over here to this tree line. We're going to give him a little bit. We're definitely going to give him a little bit. Man, that's awesome. Well, I got to call my wife. The ritual. As soon as I shoot one, I always call her first. Hang tight. Hopefully we get some better footage. Well, hopefully this isn't, the light's not too bright, but we're walking back in here. We're gonna look, see what we can't find. We'll go from there. I don't have my tripod with me for my real camera, so I'm not gonna get a whole lot of great footage, I'm sure, but you can see there's the arrow and it's covered in blood. We're just gonna leave it right there. Not even gonna touch it. I know he ran through up over this way. It's definitely hard in the dark. So there's some blood right there. Here we go. See, it's up high. There's a big body deer. That was right after the arrow fell out, but it's gonna be one of those. There's some right here. There's some right there. We're going to get on it a little bit farther before I waste up all the battery on this, but when we get a little bit closer, know a little bit more, I'll get back with you. Well, got up in here. The blood really started picking up. Started seeing a lot more bubbles in the blood. Roller coaster here, but I'm feeling pretty hopeful. Thinking that I'm going to walk up on it here in a second. You can see the hooks. Definitely bleeding good. Look a little bit farther. It's to the point now, maybe you just it's all over. I don't know why this deer wanted to come in here. Now, I'm back to being nervous again. I mean, there's still a ton of blood, and the blood's still coming through like crazy, but, you know, I've tracked him a good long ways now. And a deer this size, I don't want to root her out. Looks like there's a little hill up here. Up to here. Stop it on this hill. Oh, there he is. Oh my gosh. We found him. That's freaking awesome. Look at that deer. Whew, thank you, Jesus. Look at that. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Look at that. What do you think about that? See, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 points in just an absolute stud. Whew. I'm all over the place, but man, I'm glad I come and kept looking for it. Sorry if I'm blinding you, but my gosh, this is awesome. We'll have to get some better footage and get some good pictures of him tomorrow. Whew. Man, this is awesome. Well, always wanted to kill a deer on Halloween. Not Halloween, but I'll take Halloween Eve, come on. But man, look at that deer. Look at that character. I mean, this deer just come up out of nowhere right behind me. Man, that's awesome. Well, at least we got a little bit of footage of him. I'm gonna get him out here to the edge of the field here in a minute. I'll field dress him first because this thing's a stinking tank. It's a beast. All right, we're back. Just got done dragging that deer. It's been a while. I shot it at 6 o'clock, maybe a couple minutes after 6. Hopefully you guys can see. I don't know how well the lighting is, but it's 9:38 right now, and I just got deer back, loaded up on the trailer. We had to drag it probably a quarter of a mile. Luckily, I got a real good buddy that volunteered to come and help me, which I wouldn't have been able to do it without him. I'd still be back there struggling, but I said 9:38, so 3 hours and 38 minutes later, which I waited till 6:45 or so before I went and started tracking the deer too, so it took a little while on that, but
just glad it's done. Very interested to see what kind of measurements we end up getting from the deer. I'm extremely pleased with this deer, and I still can't believe that it happened the way that it happened. It was just so quick. I know I didn't get very good footage of it, but hey, you wouldn't have either. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. But here we are. Got him loaded up. I just finished tagging him, checking him in. Everything's done. So now it's time to go get some ice in him and take him on a little buck tour and drive around and show him off to a few people. Get him ready for pictures tomorrow. We got a long day tomorrow. We got hopefully be able to get up in the morning and get some pictures done first thing before church. If not, I have to come home right afterwards and get a bunch of pictures done, but need to get started on processing him too. It's only 54 degrees, which is a lot better than 80 something degrees too. So, but stick with us. All right, we're back next day. Finally got everything taken care of. It was quite an adventure last night. But by the time I got done with everything, got back in the truck after checking him in, it was 9:38 if I remember right. I shot him at like 6 or 6:01 whenever he come through, and I shot him. So it was a long track. He ran 300 to 400 yards, and you can see right here is entrance hole. May have been a hair high, but really on where it poked through on the other side, it was about perfect. So I ended up going through both lungs. Like I said, I'm not really sure how he went as far as he did, but the way it all kind of unraveled was, it was very fast. I had a small 8-pointer that was in there that had been chasing does, and he'd been pushing does, I guess I should say. That none of the does were hot yet, but he'd been pushing them all over and grunting and just going crazy. I was filming it and had quite a bit of good footage of it, and then all of a sudden my light started flashing because my battery was about dead. So I was reaching around trying to get a new battery, had it in my backpack, which was just right behind me. So I'm back here about like this trying to grab this battery out of my bag, and I had a doe right out in front of me at 15 yards, and I had a doe over beside me in the woods at 5 to 10 yards away from me, and then I had a couple other does out in the field to my left, and that little 8-pointer was kind of behind me a little bit, not real far, but sitting there trying to be take as small movements as I can, be as quiet as possible and as stealthy as possible, and could not get to the battery. Was trying to unzip the backpack like this, you know, it didn't work out too well. Then all of a sudden I hear something, and I just glanced behind me. He was coming right in behind me. I just heard the beans, and I turned and looked and seen this guy, and he was coming in. I think he was really coming in after that little small 8-pointer, because that little small one he was grunting and just going crazy all night, you know, in there. But I think he was coming up to kind of put him in check. And whenever I turned and seen this deer, that doe caught my movement, and she was right out in front of me, and I couldn't really do much of anything. I had a GoPro up ahead of me. I couldn't turn it on. My main camera, like I said, the battery was about dead. It still had a little bit going in it, but the way this was, you know, my camera arm's right here coming out to where I could film right here. Well, that buck that come out was way back over here behind me and to my left. So I would have had to have folded that camera arm in, got out in front of it, and pulled it around on the other side of me. And that deer that already busted me, there's no way that was going to happen. So she's already looking at me, she's stomping. That buck was 25 yards from me. This buck's 25 yards from me whenever I first seen him. I stood there for a minute. I waited. That doe looked at him, and as soon as she turned to look at him, I reached up and turned my Tacticam on. But whenever she turned to look at him, I figured she was going to look at him for a minute, but she didn't. She glanced at him and then went right back to me. So she'd seen me move and turn that Tacticam on the bow, and she started stomping. This buck was sitting here staring at her. I just knew that this was all about to be over, and they were all about ready to just take off and running and blowing and just getting out of there. I thought it was a ruined chance there, but He looked at her for a minute and he stopped, turned back and looked at that 8-pointer. When he did, he was quartering to me. He turned and started to go towards that 8-pointer, and I mean, it was very, very fast. As soon as he turned and took a step, at that point in time, he was quartering away slightly, almost completely broadside. And I grabbed my bow, hooked my release up, pulled back on him, and as soon as I got the pin on it, I let it go, because that whole time I was doing all this, the doe was staring at me and stomping. She didn't blow until after I shot. That's the one thing that helped me out. But then this deer took off running, and that's when all the emotions started going crazy, because I didn't get a complete pass through. I hit him a little bit high, come through, and it stuck into his other shoulder. It was one of those where I've seen it. I was like, man, I thought I hit him a little far forward, and I knew that it didn't go all the way through. So it was one of those, I knew I hit him in a shoulder, but didn't know which shoulder it was, so I wasn't 100% sure what all was about to happen. This deer ran out about 200 yards out and stopped in the middle of the bean field and stood there for 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and then he turned and just took off running. He was flickering his tail real hard when he's standing out in the beans. And then he turned and took off running back to the tree line where I was at, but you know, on down farther. And I never heard him crash. So I was getting really concerned. Well, I made my phone calls right after I kill a deer. I always call my wife right afterwards and let her know. Soon after that, I made a couple other phone calls, and then it was time to start putting all my stuff up. It was almost dark, or it was getting dark at that point. So I put everything up and took off and walked to the truck. As I was walking to the truck, I passed by the arrow that broke off where I could see it. It was sitting there just flashing, going crazy. The nocturnal was. And I got up there to it, and there was only 6 to 7 inches of that arrow that was left. The rest of it was in that deer, or had gone in that deer. And then that 6 to 7 inches was just completely covered in blood. So then I felt a whole lot better. Went back, put all my stuff up, waited a little bit, went back in there about 45 minutes after I shot him, and started trailing and just easing on up through the beans as I was going, because he ran all through the middle of the beans. And I was finding decent blood, not great blood, but decent blood. It wasn't where I was searching for little specks. And I went on and followed it all the way around, got over to the tree line, and eased on up in the tree line. And that was where I was planning on just stopping and being done with it. But I decided I'd go in and look 5 to 10 yards around and see if I found the deer, and if not, I told myself I was going back out and come back today. Well, went in, the blood picked up a little bit more, started seeing a lot more bubbles. So the rest is history. We ended up finding him, but he went a long ways, and then we had about a quarter of a mile drag out through the beans. So it was a very long night, but well worth it. Like I said, we did just tape this deer right before we come out here for pictures, and come out to be 169.5. Still not a booner, close. Biggest one I've killed before this, the biggest one was 165. So the footage of this deer isn't the greatest. It's all just on Tactacam, but at least I was able to get it going and get it rolling. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Keep checking back. I'll have some more videos coming out soon. If you haven't seen, I put one out before this one of my boy's youth season, where he killed a doe, put the smoke down on her. It's not a very long video, it'd be kind of a shorter one, but check it out. You know, give us a like, subscribe. But thanks for tuning in to My Obsessions.